In today's world, everything around us is designed to constantly stimulate our emotions. Advertisements, food products, and social media posts are created to give us instant gratification, leaving us craving for more. It's no secret that big companies profit from keeping us hooked and dependent. Unless we have a plan for ourselves, we will become vulnerable to their schemes, manipulated and controlled like puppets. Our free will becomes compromised as we lose ourselves in the pursuit of happiness through these tantalizing illusions. Research shows that, on average, people spend about 3 hours per day engaged with their smartphones. That amounts to 1,095 hours every single year. Fortunately, there is a pathway to reclaim our autonomy and break free from our impulsive tendencies. It's called dopamine fasting. But what exactly is dopamine? Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with our craving for rewards. According to Loretta Breuning, the author of Habits of a Happy Brain, dopamine is triggered by novel experiences. That's why the first lick of an ice cream cone feels so euphoric. As you continue licking, your brain starts seeking new, unexplored stimuli. The ice cream becomes less thrilling because familiarity reduces its appeal. Instead, your brain craves other exciting experiences to satisfy its need for novelty. Here's where it gets tricky. Video games, pornography websites, and social media platforms are intentionally designed to keep triggering dopamine release, constantly providing new stimuli to keep your brain hooked. I'm sure you're familiar with those moments when you decide to have a productive day, only to find yourself mindlessly scrolling through Instagram and checking notifications for hours on end. Time slips away, you feel disappointed in yourself, and things that used to bring excitement no longer hold the same allure. This is where dopamine fasting can change the game. Dopamine fasting, the concept of abstaining from dopamine-stimulating activities for an extended period of time, aims to reset the brain and break free from addictive behaviors that have a negative impact on one's life. It is often mistakenly believed to be about reducing dopamine, which is not true. Dopamine is essential for healthy functioning as a human being. The interest in dopamine fasting surged in October 2018 and gained further attention a year later when Dr. Cameron Sepper published an article on Medium titled The Definitive Guide to Dopamine Fasting 2.0, The Hot Silicon Valley Trend. Dopamine fasting 2.0, on the other hand, focuses on cognitive behavioral therapy as a means of reducing impulsive behavior rather than reducing dopamine itself. It does not require individuals to completely abstain from all forms of pleasure like a full-blown monk. So, what is the scientific basis behind dopamine fasting 2.0? As mentioned before, it is rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, an evidence-based practice widely prescribed by professionals worldwide for behavior change. CBT solutions such as stimulus control can help decrease the likelihood of engaging in addictive behaviors. For instance, if your phone's SMS tone plays and you impulsively reach for your phone to read the message, the tone acts as a stimulus and your behavior is to open the message. Two solutions are as follows: either remove the stimulus by placing your phone in another room or disabling notifications, or engage in an activity that isn't compatible with reading your phone, such as going for a swim. Another solution is exposure and response prevention, ERP. For example, if you come across an attractive girl on Instagram and notice an increase in heart rate and a tingling sensation in your body, instead of succumbing to impulsive actions, apply ERP and frequently look at attractive pictures on Instagram while refraining from masturbating. I understand that it can be challenging, but there is a technique called urge surfing that can be of help. By practicing mindfulness for a few minutes, you can bring your attention to the location where you feel the urge in your body and simply observe it. Take note of how the sensations feel. Afterward, take a moment to thank yourself and set your intention for the tasks you will undertake next in your day. With time, this will become easier and you will likely feel a sense of accomplishment. At this point, you may be wondering if dopamine fasting truly works for managing addictions. If you refer to reducing dopamine levels as dopamine fasting, then the answer is no. However, if you are referring to dopamine fasting 2.0, a CBT-based approach as we just learned, then the answer is yes. An analysis of 160 studies confirmed the strong evidence base of CBT in general. But how does dopamine fasting help in restoring motivation? Excessive or prolonged increases in dopamine levels can diminish the number of dopamine receptors in your brain. Dopamine fasting may help increase the number of receptors through a process known as upregulation. The more receptors you have, the less stimuli it will take to experience the same amount of pleasure. For instance, if you avoid consuming processed sugar for a month, a single blueberry could bring you the same amount of pleasure as your favorite ice cream. So how do you practice dopamine fasting? It involves 2 steps. The first step is to identify behaviors causing stress, impairment, or addiction. Common impulsive behaviors include emotional eating, excessive use of the internet and gaming, gambling and shopping, seeking novelty, recreational drug use, porn consumption, and masturbation. The second step is following a dopamine fasting schedule. As an example, let's say you want to reduce the amount of time you waste on your phone. You can begin by refraining from using your phone for 1 to 4 hours every day, 1 day per week, 1 weekend every quarter, and 1 full week per year. Start small and gradually increase the periods of time you spend away from your phone. These guidelines are not set in stone. Follow a fasting schedule that suits you. Now that you know how to do a dopamine fast, you may find it challenging at first. Don't worry, I'm here to share some tips that could help you overcome your addictions and bad habits more easily. Let's talk about establishing a routine and replacing the rewards. Imagine that you have a habit of buying a Coke from the cafeteria every day. Every time you drink it, you feel bad afterward and end up gaining weight. So you decide to try dopamine fasting. Instead of drinking a Coke every day, you attempt to limit yourself to once every 2 days. However, you encounter difficulties during this process. According to Charles Duhigg's book On the Power of Habit, here's what you should try instead. First, identify the specific behavior. In this example, it involves getting up, walking to the cafeteria, purchasing a Coke, and consuming it. Next, determine the reward you are craving for. A craving is what drives the behavior, and the reward is what satisfies the craving. Ask yourself, why do you tend to get a Coke from the cafeteria? Are you thirsty? Do you crave a sugar rush? Do you need a break from work? Or do you desire social interaction at the cafeteria? Now, experiment with 4 to 5 different rewards. For instance, on one day, drink a bottle of water. If your craving diminishes after 15 minutes, it could be that you were simply thirsty but had developed the habit of choosing a Coke. On another day, try going for a walk and calling a friend. If your craving subsides after 15 minutes, it might indicate that you were seeking social interaction. After each activity, make a note of how you feel. After a few days or weeks, examine the patterns to determine which reward truly satisfies your craving. Imagine discovering that the satisfaction you get from drinking Coke comes from the sugar rush it provides. Now, the next step is to identify what triggers your craving for that sugary rush. Is it the time of day? Is it seeing others drink Coke? Is it watching a YouTube ad? Or maybe it's because you've just eaten something. Identifying the trigger can be challenging, but luckily, science suggests that triggers can usually be categorized into 5 groups: location, time, emotional state, other people, or the action immediately before the craving. Upon learning that your trigger is time-based, such as always craving it around 3 in the afternoon, regardless of circumstances, you'll start feeling empowered knowing your habits can be changed. So, the final step is to make a plan. Whenever 3 p.m. rolls around, consciously opt for a healthier alternative that satisfies your craving, like going to a nearby juice bar to enjoy your favorite organic juice instead of a Coke. Personally, since I work from home, I love stocking my fridge with cans of naturally flavored sparkling water with a hint of lemon. It gives me the same satisfaction as having a Coke, but without the bad ingredients.